The Adventures of Turbo Tessa, the fastest kid in town. Tessa Parker was an ordinary girl, well, mostly. She lived in an ordinary house on an ordinary street, went to an ordinary school, and had a pretty ordinary family. But there was one thing that made Tessa not so ordinary: she was the fastest kid in town. No one knew how she did it, not even Tessa herself. It all started when she got her favorite pair of sneakers for her 8th birthday. The sneakers were bright orange with blue lightning bolts on the side, and they made her feel like she could run faster than the wind. One day, after tying her sneakers extra tight, she headed to the park for a race with her friends. As soon as the starting whistle blew, Tessa took off. She ran so fast that her friends were left in the dust, literally. But she didn't stop there. She kept running, faster and faster, until she zoomed past the park, past her school, and past the whole neighborhood. Tessa finally stopped when she reached the edge of town, panting but exhilarated. "Whoa," she muttered, looking down at her sneakers. "I'm super fast. I'm like Turbo Tessa." From that moment on, Tessa adopted her new superhero name, Turbo Tessa, and decided to use her incredible speed for good. After all, with great speed comes great responsibility. Chapter 1, Turbo Tessa to the rescue. One morning, while Tessa was getting ready for school, she heard a cry for help from across the street. Mrs. Jenkins, the old lady who lived in the yellow house, was standing on her porch, waving her arms frantically. Tessa, ever ready for action, raced over to see what was wrong. "What's going on, Mrs. Jenkins?" she asked. "Oh, Tessa. My cat, Whiskers, got stuck on the roof. I don't know how he got up there, but he's too scared to come down." Tessa looked up and saw Whiskers, a fluffy ball of fur, trembling at the very edge of the roof. Normally, this would be a job for the fire department, but Tessa knew she could handle it, fast. "Don't worry, Mrs. Jenkins," Tessa said, tightening her sneakers. "Turbo Tessa is on the job." With a flash, Tessa zoomed around the side of the house, running so fast that she actually ran up the wall. She reached the roof in the blink of an eye, scooped up Whiskers, and gently raced back down to the ground, all before Mrs. Jenkins had time to gasp. "Oh my goodness!" Mrs. Jenkins cried. "You're amazing, Tessa. How did you do that?" Tessa just smiled and shrugged. "Just fast feet, I guess." Chapter 2, the schoolyard showdown. Word about Turbo Tessa's speed spread quickly, and soon everyone at school wanted to challenge her to a race. But there was one kid who wasn't so impressed, Joey, the Rocket, Thompson. Joey was the fastest runner in the school, at least until Tessa came along. One day, Joey marched up to Tessa at recess. "I hear you think you're the fastest runner around, but I bet you can't beat me," he said with a smirk. Tessa raised an eyebrow. "You really want to race?" Joey crossed his arms. "Yep. I'm the fastest, and I'm going to prove it." Tessa didn't really like the idea of racing for pride, but she also didn't want to back down. "All right," she said. "Let's race. First one to the big oak tree and back." The other kids gathered around, buzzing with excitement. "This is going to be epic," one kid whispered. The race began with Joey taking off like a rocket. He was fast, no doubt about it. But Tessa was Turbo Tessa. She gave him a 5-second head start, just to be fair, and then, whoosh! She took off, leaving Joey in the dust. She reached the tree, turned around, and sped back to the starting line before Joey was even halfway there. The crowd erupted in cheers as Joey finally huffed and puffed his way back. "Wow, Tessa, you really are the fastest," Joey said, shaking her hand. "I've never seen anyone run like that." Tessa smiled. "It's not about being the fastest, Joey. It's about having fun." Chapter 3, Turbo Tessa saves the day. One afternoon, as Tessa was heading home from school, she noticed dark clouds rolling in fast. The wind picked up, and the air felt heavy, like a storm was coming. Suddenly, she heard a loud crack of thunder, followed by a panicked scream from down the street. Tessa sprinted toward the noise and saw that a huge tree branch had fallen onto the road, blocking traffic. Worse yet, a little girl was trapped on the other side, scared to cross back to safety. "Don't worry," Tessa called out. "Turbo Tessa is here." Without thinking twice, Tessa zoomed over to the little girl, picked her up in a flash, and carried her to the sidewalk just as another branch crashed down. The little girl's mother rushed over, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Tessa. You saved her." Tessa grinned, feeling like a real hero. All in a day's work for Turbo Tessa. From then on, Tessa became known not just for her speed, but for her kindness and willingness to help others. Whether it was rescuing cats, winning races, or saving the day during a storm, Turbo Tessa was always ready for the next adventure. And though she never quite figured out how her sneakers made her so fast, she knew one thing for sure: being a superhero wasn't about the speed, it was about being there when people needed you. The end. For now,